Hi, it's Ollie from Cross Platform Gaming, and welcome to today's video. It's another tier list because we know that you guys like them so much on the channel. The two that we've got already on there have done fantastically by way of views and everything like that, and the likes and stuff that we're getting, the general reception and feedback has been great. So we thought we'd bring another one to you today. It's going to be a slightly shorter one, but we're delving back into what's now the previous generation, because now it's time for the PS5 and its counterpart on the Xbox side with the Series X to start churning out their own exclusives and potentially bring us a new tier list for this in the future. But today we've got the best PlayStation 4 exclusives. You can see them all on your screen there. So that's what I am going to be going through today alongside my co-host, my comrade, my XPL compatriot, Dan. Please say hello, Dan, and let us know how you are today.
Hello. I'm doing good today. This is kind of a bumper recording day for those of you who are interested. We've done one of our It Takes Two videos, and also we're getting this one recorded today as well, just so we've got a little bit more of a stock. And this one will probably come out first, but that's only because it's a bit quicker to edit and we don't have to mess about too much.
Yeah, and because it does come out first, it might be a good idea for us at the start of this video, before we properly get stuck right into the tier list, to say that the It Takes Two series that Dan's just mentioned there, I'm guessing that we're probably going to have quite a few more views on this video as opposed to that series, so I'd really encourage you to go and check that out if you do have the time to go and do it. We're getting a lot of good feedback for that as well. It's just that the views aren't the best, so potentially you might be able to get some new eyes on that. I would just say, just as an aside, the first video has some quite poor audio from my side, but from episode 2 onwards it picks up and it's completely fine from there. But I'd recommend it quite a lot. I'm sure you would too, Dan.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that game is one of those where you kind of you judge it by its cover, and then when you actually see some of the gameplay and some of the jokes and stuff that's in it, it's incredible. So I didn't think it was for me, but then we are halfway through the game now, and it's incredible. It's probably one of the best games that I've played in a long time, and it's just something where you can you don't have to focus on it too much. So yeah, please do go and watch that series. There's a lot of love in there from both of us, and as Ollie sort of mentioned, we've had some really good feedback from people that have liked the video and have watched it, and they've kind of tried sharing it around themselves as well. So yeah, it would be really good if you can go and let us know what you think about it. Yeah,
agreed. So just sort of basic ground rules. If you've not seen any of our tier list videos before, what we'll do is we'll go through each game individually. We'll pick them at random, but we'll take it in turns to have a pick and then alternate. We'll rank them within these rankings that are on this pre-built tier list anyway. We've got the S ranking, A, B, C, and D, and then the games below. There might be some that are missed out. If there are, please let us know. But please do remember that this tier list isn't created by ourselves, so the curator is someone that's made it on the website and put it on there, and we're just using it anyway. So, and at the end, we like to go over it again and list them and rank them by ranking order, if that makes sense. So, for example, say if, let's just pick the first two, say if Knack and The Last of Us were both on S, we'd then have a discussion once they're all listed and say, but is Last of Us better than Knack? And if it was, which it quite obviously is, we'd put it above Knack, but in the same tier. So, without any further ado, without any further ado, I'd like to hand it to my co-host, comrade, and compatriot, Daniel, to see if he'd like to pick us the first game.
Yeah, okay, why not? Let's shoot. We're hoping that this is going to be a bit of a quicker episode, so it's not going to be the 2-hour behemoth that we've had before, and we do like that word on this channel.
Oh yes. That sound like Churchill then. Oh yes.
So I'm going to kick us off with something super obvious. If anyone who's watching or listening to this actually knows me, Spider-Man. Now, I don't think anyone in normal mindset is ever going to be able to change me. Me just as a person, but also my thinking about this game. this deserves to be S. Quite simply, it was ridiculously groundbreaking with the idea of ray tracing for the web slinging, and that basically is what is going to make or break any Spider-Man game. I think the last good Spider-Man game for web slinging was like Spider-Man 2, I think.
Yeah, PS2 one.
Yeah, and that was really, really good. Not taking anything away from that, but the thought and the detail that's gone into this game is ridiculous. I mean, the graphics engine alone is really good, but it's even the small little Easter eggs for people who are fans of Marvel themselves, like finding Avengers Tower. It's like it's not anything massive, but going into it when you're fully enveloped in the MCU, as a lot of people are, it's really good to sort of have a lot of those little Easter eggs that are around, and there's loads of backpacks that you can go and pick up that have got like little things from Spider-Man's sort of history across comics, across cartoons, and previous films and games alike as well. And they've just thought about this really, really well. And I would say it's probably the best superhero game I have come across. Only very, very slightly ahead of, I would say, the Arkham series for Batman. So if anyone is a massive fan of not just Spider-Man, but the MCU alone, this definitely has to be in your collection as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, for myself, coming from someone that isn't a big MCU guy at all, I mean, that's probably an understatement. I don't really know anything about it, to be honest. You were going on about it a bit before it came out, and I think you sold it to me just by what you were saying. So I'm pretty sure I pre-ordered it when it came out. If not, I got it really early, so like within a week when it came out. And yeah, as someone that's not an MCU guy, I was thoroughly entertained. I thought it was brilliant. And I think it was one of the best games to come out on that generation, regardless of it being a PS4 exclusive or whatever. If it were to come out on all others, it'd still be top in that list if you include Xbox, PC games, whatever. But what was I going to... Oh, yeah. Hold on. I think the fact that when the Miles Morales game came out, they included a new remastered version of this for the current generation. I think that speaks volumes, just because the Spider-Man actually came out towards the tail end of the last generation anyway, and then right at the start of this one, we've already got a remaster to bring it up to date. So I think that really shows how much the audience wants the game, and they want an up-to-date version to play on current consoles. I think, what had it been? Only maybe 2 years or something since it was released, and they remastered it and gave it to the audience again straight away. And I think that's, again, speaks volumes. That goes to show that there's an appetite for the game, and people still want it, and still want it as up to date as possible. And also, in my opinion, just as I've mentioned Miles Morales, I thought that it was better than Miles Morales too. I thought Miles Morales was really good. It was just way too short. But it didn't build upon the current Spider-Man. It just worked with what it already had and gave us another 4 hours of the old Spider-Man with haptic feedback, really.
Yeah, and I mean, the first Spider-Man game, obviously the one that's there, I mean, I was super excited about it anyway. I had it pre-ordered, and I couldn't wait to get into all the different suits, and I did not realise the amount of time that I would sink into that game. Not just from all the collection side of it. I think the main story, I think I completed it in the first weekend it came out. But that's not any slight on the length of the story, because I thought the length of the story was fine. It was just, I was sat glued to my couch, basically, sweating everywhere. And just
I
really
remember that.
it.
I didn't see you for days upon days. And then when you got to the end, I think it was near your birthday or Christmas or one of the sorts, and I bought you the first DLC that came out, and then I'm pretty sure you went through 90%, if not all, of the DLC that was available as well. You were in a vegetative you were in a veggie state for the entirety of that game's lifespan, if not even past that. I think you really got into that. So yeah, I'm happy for you to stick that as an S.
Good. Right, let's get your pick.
Yeah, I think just before I make my pick, I was just going to throw something at you to see if you think that it makes more sense. So just with all of the games that are below, I think we've played the majority, but there will be one or two that we haven't played. Mm-hmm. Would you rather we left the ones we haven't played in the list below, because I don't think it's fair to just straight up go, oh, well, that's a D because I've not played it, because we've not played it, so we can't really rate it. So I'm thinking maybe like Gravity Rush 2 that I've not played.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be inclined to agree. However, I do think it makes for interesting comments when we do things like that, because there's been a few times on previous tier list videos where people have got, quite rightly, sort of very angry about us not picking up a game.
We've been hunted.
Yeah, or putting it lower down because we hadn't got a chance to play it. And positive or negative, it doesn't really matter. It's good for the community. It's good for the videos themselves, and also if you've ever been one of those people who's watched one of our previous tier list videos and you've left a comment saying, how dare you not give this a proper chance, it's a great game, blah blah blah, you will know that we actually come back and we will respond to you, and we have said before, actually you've changed our minds, we're going to go and pick that up at another time and in the future and play it and give it another go. So it gives us that little bit of connection with our audience as well. So I would kind of stick to the idea, I think, of putting it in as just a really low rating, just so that we get some more communication between us and the viewers. Okay
then, well, if we're going to go with that, I would like to then therefore put forward Gravity Rush 2. And for me, the fact that I've not really massively heard of it before, that might be blasphemy, I don't know. But there's no point in being part of a YouTube team of a YouTube gaming team if I'm not much of a gamer. So I'd like to think that I've got my ear to the ground in the gaming industry and I know what's going on. So if I don't really know of Gravity Rush 2, and it's not something I have played, nor is it something that particularly want to play, therefore I'm giving it a D because they've not sold it to me, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So I feel like I'm going to put that there, but I do want to open that up to the audience. If you have played Gravity Rush 2, you do think I'm being completely unfair and need to give it a go, please tell me why in the comments below. I want to know exactly I want to know all the pros to weigh against the cons that I've just done there. And if you're a long-time viewer of the channel, you know what sort of thing I like. So if it appeals to me or if it appeals to Dan, please let us know exactly why that is. And we will come back to that and I'll re-rank it if you can sell it to me and you can get me to stick a controller in my hand and play this game for an hour or so, if not more. I'm happy to do a completely different video on Gravity Rush 2 and why I was wrong. And you can hold me to that and you can point me back to this video to tell me that. But I need those comments below, otherwise it's going to stay in D. Do you agree with what I've said there, Dan?
Absolutely. I mean, put it this way, for any of you who don't know Ollie on a personal level, I can vouch for his PS4 games library as being probably one of the most eclectic collections I have ever come across.
I've pretty much bought everything and just not Gravity Rush 2.
Yeah, the fact that you have ridiculous amount of indie games that nobody's ever heard of, and yet this is obviously one of those games that would have been a first party, and you don't have it, never played it, would suggest that they either failed massively with the marketing, or it was just a terrible game. But equally, as you've said, if there is a comment below that gets us to change our mind, or if it's an army of comments, who knows, who say no, you need to go and give this a good go, because it might be one of those cult games, that like for example that video you did very recently, Snow, with Sleeping Dogs.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
It could be similar to that. I would also like to get involved with that. If we did have a comment and we did go back and revisit the game, we will do a Gravity Rush 2 Why We Were Wrong video, and we will put not only your comment in there, but we will also see if we can get you on the channel and speaking about it as well. I think that would be really interesting.
Yeah, I've got a little bit of background as well, because I've just given it a quick Google. So the average score, if we're saying it's out of 10, looks to be around about 8 out of 10.
Okay.
So it seems to be decent. However, what I'm seeing the most is that the first Gravity Rush is really good and Gravity Rush 2 isn't quite as good. But just read this line out to you, and this might tell us that hopefully we'll get a few comments from fans of this game, because there seems to be quite a few out there. But this is a review that's on Google. This is just the first bit. Very rarely does a game come out where even the menu shows the amount of passion held by the developer to create the best experience they possibly could. I mean, I feel like we may be doing it a disservice if somebody thinks that. So please come and let us know that we're wrong, because I kind of fancy giving it a go now, just because of Grumpy Uncle Nick's review on Google.
Yeah, absolutely. It'd be good to get some people who have played it, or people who have even played the first one and thought, actually, I agree with you guys, or actually give it the time of day and then do this or something like that. It'd just be nice to hear back and get a bit more feedback from the community.
Yeah, let us know. And that does go for all the games as well. Let us know if we were wrong. Let us know if we were right. Let's have a bit of interaction and a good debate in the comments below, because as Dan alluded to, there has been quite a bit of debate, especially in the Ubisoft video that we've done, which you can catch on the channel if you've not seen it already. There's been some good debate in there. People, on the whole, tend to understand that it is just opinion. Everyone has an opinion, and everyone's entitled to their opinion. But if you're going to say that we're completely wrong about the favourite game and that you should kill us, I'd probably just not bother with the comment. But if you're going to tell us that we're completely wrong and this is why, but I respect your opinion, then welcome, feel free.
Yeah, also, if you're one of those people who literally just posts a link to some sketchy website, you can probably keep that comment to yourself as well.
Sexy girls for you.
Exactly. And with that, I think we go on to the next one.
Yeah, do some sexy girls for us, Dad. Let's have a pick.
Okay, so I am going to kick off with another one that I think is probably... I think it's going to be a mixed one, actually. And I expect this one to be mixed. So I'm going to go with Driveclub. Now, I am going to put this as a B. And I think the real reason I'm going to give it a B is... it's a mix of a couple. So first of all, it was, I believe... The demo of it with the VR system was the first sort of time I'd experienced Driveclub, which is probably not the correct way. And it was buggy as hell. It made me feel sick. Bearing in mind, I've played a few games on VR, and I would say that I generally don't suffer from any kind of motion sickness. But it was awful. I thought the whole idea of it in VR just did not work. Having said that, I did go back and play the version that isn't a VR, and I thought it was an okay game. It wasn't brilliant. I mean, you're talking to the person who's, I've sunk, I think, over 150 hours so far into Need for Speed Heat, which for the typical arcade racer is probably not a great game, in terms of the series themselves, you would say Driveclub is probably in a similar vein to things like Gran Turismo, where it's more for the serious driver. But that just kind of takes the feel away from me. It doesn't make me feel like I want to play the game. It feels quite restrictive, and the controls were a little bit too real, maybe. Like if I had a steering wheel set up, then I probably would have enjoyed it a bit more. But certainly with a controller, it just didn't feel like it was designed very well. So that's why I think it does deserve a high place, but it doesn't deserve to be in S or A rank at all.
Yeah, I think it's in the right place on the tier. I do think it does need commending just because it came out, I'm pretty sure it was a launch title, if not really, really early into the PS4's life cycle. And it really wasn't a finished product whatsoever when it came out. They worked on it quite a lot in the next few years, and they made it into what it is now, which I think is a fairly solid racer. But if we were comparing it to how it started, it would have started and it would have been down at D. But they've worked on it so hard. But because it was one of those launch titles, I feel like I've always had the thought in my head about this game that it almost had a vibe of sort of being like a tech demo. Mm-hmm. And they were just trying to show off the visuals and things that the new system could do. I remember quite fondly, because I really like it, how the rainwater went across the windows as you gathered speed and you were driving in the rain. Yep. I think that was really well done. And I think that must have taken quite a bit, really, for a PS4. Now we know what kind of technology we're working with nowadays. I think they did really well visually. So the graphics put it up for me to around a B. I think the gameplay, whilst being solid, it's nothing, groundbreaking. It's not anything huge. Like, I don't think on the Xbox side of things it compares to like Forza or anything like that. Mm-hmm. Or on our side of things, I don't think it compares to maybe the older Gran Turismo games. Slight spoiler for later on. But I think it's got its own little area in the market. They released I can't remember what it's called, but the motorcycle one. It's called like Bike Club or something like that.
Yeah.
So there was obviously there was an audience for it to be able to release a sort of spin-off for it. So yeah, middle of the road, completely acceptable with me.
Cool. Right, next one.
Okay, I'm going to get it out of the way whilst we're here. Long-time viewers, well, any viewer of the channel, I think, because I must have spoken about it in 90% of the videos that we've got uploaded at the moment. But I'm going to just get it done because I'm not going to go on about it like I have in other ones. I'm just going to say that it's one of, if not the, but it's 100% personally in my top 3 games of all time. The Last of Us is 100% an S-rated game. I'm not a horror guy whatsoever. It's not really a horror game, but it comes with those connotations because of the enemies that you encounter. So like with the infected, and I tried to look past that because of the things everyone was saying about it. I was quite late to the party. I only played the remastered PS4 one, which is the one that we're evaluating now. I didn't play it in the previous generation, and I'm so glad that I decided to look past the horror connotations that it does have, because it's not a horror game really at all. It's just a perfectly crafted masterpiece. It looked great for the time. The story is exceptional. There's not many other stories that are told that great on any console or PC or in video games whatsoever. It's got a brilliant twist at the end that I don't think anyone really saw coming. The gameplay is second to none. The way that they handle stealth is quite a difficult one in gaming. It's very, very easy to mess up stealth sections or a stealth game. It doesn't take much to make it seem a bit hokey, like where you've got the cone of visions and it seems to be like one or the other. You can breeze past enemies that in real life would have spotted you a mile off, or there's ones where the enemies can see you through walls and anything like that. It's really hard to strike that balance and get in the middle of that, and I believe that the first Last of Us game does that. There's also a lot of backwards and forwards and toing and throwing on The Last of Us Part 2, which isn't on this list, but I will add it onto here. Last of Us Part 2 is also fantastic. I'm currently recording my section of the voice on this video on top of the Last of Us Part 2 Collector's Edition, so it's even got its own cameo in this as well. I'm, again, so thankful that I went to The Last of Us, and it's one of the greatest video game franchises of all time, and I think it also shows that must be true because it's having its own HBO series and they've got it all casted and they're going to be shooting it soon, and the fanfare for that, even though it's not even out yet, is astronomical already. It's a titan of gaming, and it's all down to the first game that they made. The DLC on it, Left Behind, also fantastic. Everything that Naughty Dog touches seems to turn to gold, and slightly debatable for some people, I guess, a bit controversial, but The Last of Us is the best thing they do. So it takes its rightful place at S. And I've been trying for so long to get Dan to do it, but Dan really doesn't like the horror connotations I was on about. So once he gets past that like I did, I know he's going to enjoy it as well. And it's amazing and one of the best things I've ever played. And I will talk about it for 4 hours if I have to, but I won't because we don't want to keep you all day. So Last of Us, S. Thank you. Yeah,
and from me, there's no argument there because, as I've said, I think before when we've spoken about this game on other videos and things, it's your passion for this franchise that has made me even think about playing the game. And as I've said, I 100% will. I've got The Last of Us remastered. I can get a copy of Last of Us Part 2 if I do like it, which by the sounds of things I will. And Dean, who's also on the channel, has also told me just how amazing both of those games are. And when the two of you, I respect highly, and I understand the sort of games that you both play and the sort of the enjoyment that you get from certain genres and things. That's the biggest reason for me that I won't disagree. Even though I have never played this game, it's spoken so highly of, and the ratings just across the board are so high for both of these games that there's not going to be any argument, and it's definitely something I'll be looking into in the future.
Good to hear.
Right then, on to the next one. This one I am also going to I think put quite highly up, but I don't think it's going to make its way into S. I'm probably going to say A, and that is open to a lot of argument, I suppose. So the first Infamous game, I was not massively into. I thought it was okay. I never went out and bought it. I think somebody had bought it for me, or I'd played a few hours or something like that, and it was okay. And I thought, yeah, it's not too bad. It's trying to be a superhero game, and the story was okay. The second game, I believe it came out as a PS Plus exclusive at some point throughout the PS4's lifetime, and that's when I picked it up. And I thought, oh well, I played the first one, the second one, let's give it a go. It's free. It's not going to cost me anything. And I think the very first couple of days that I picked that game up, I'd sunk 30 hours into it. I wasn't expecting it, and it kind of blew me away. But it feels very much like an X-Man kind of version of a superhero. So although it's in the it's in the bigger picture, and there's many more of these kind of iterations of the superheroes and stuff like that. For me, it felt like this kind of series would fit with the X-Men. It's kind of like a little bit darker. It's a little bit gritty. There's some segregation between those people that have got powers and those people that don't. And it's the way that you use the powers as well is quite good, and the physics engine for those abilities I thought was just quite good. It's nothing compared to Spider-Man, of course, and if you were to compare it to the Avengers game that should have been way better, this I would say would sit more highly above the Avengers game. So A for me.
Okay, I think I'll let you do what you want with this one. I have played it. I've played it either when it was a PS exclusive or through PS Now, one of the two. And I just didn't click with it. I've played, was it First Light? I think it's something like that. I've played that as well, and it was the same for that. I just think it's because, as I mentioned with the Spider-Man thing, the whole superhero thing, it's not really something that I've ever massively been into. So I think if it's a game that does that sort of thing, it needs to be like exceptionally good for me to get into it, like Spider-Man was. So I think it was just that, because I can't seem to recall anything in my mind that made me purposefully switch off. So like there wasn't any poor design, or it's not like I didn't get on with the game or anything like that. I just think that sort of thing, it takes a lot to hook me. So I'm happy to go with what you want, because as I said, there was nothing that I can see as a negative. It's more sort of just personally, it's just something that I didn't click with. So I don't think that's really fair to bring it down just because it's not a game that I finished.
Cool. Next one.
Right, I'm gonna go for a game that I've actually recently finished. I started it years ago. I got about halfway through, and then there was some huge releases that came out, and I randomly picked it up again because obviously it's the start of the year and there hasn't been many big titles coming out. So I thought I'd pick something up that I'd started before, and that's The Order 1886. Pretty sure it was a launch title with the PS4, and it still holds up today visually. It's one of the best looking games I've ever played in my life. You're in a cutscene and then you move the analog stick and you're walking around and, oh wait, this isn't a cutscene. This is actual live gameplay. It's ridiculously good looking. It's the shooting on it, and because it's a third person shooter, it's not really meaty. It's not got too much depth to it at all. There's a few stealth sections that are mildly infuriating. Touches on the stuff that I said about stealth before. They seem to be able to spot you quite easily. And there's nothing really memorable from the actual gameplay side of things, but it just looks fantastic. It got panned, but I think really that's more because there wasn't too much depth and because it was really short. I seem to believe it took me less than 6 hours to complete. And if it was longer, and it was exactly the same, I think we'd be looking at a 7 out of 10, I reckon, game. I don't think it's as bad as a lot of people have said it is. I think the shooting does hold up. It's just, it doesn't compare to maybe some of the more heavier hitters in the shooting genre or the third-person shooter genre. I think it deserves, a sequel on PS5, if they can build on the graphics, would look unreal. If they can make that like a 10-hour game and they just build on the shooting and make it a little more streamlined, you could be looking at a really, really solid third-person shooter there. So I think it's undeservedly given negative reviews. I think it's a lot better than people say it is, and I would be really looking to put that on B if it was me. I don't know if you've had any sort of dealings with it at all, but I remember talking to you when I completed it, so I think you sort of base what you're thinking about what I've said to you. But B is where I'd like to elect for that to go.
Yeah, that'd be fine. I mean, it's not a game I've ever paid attention to, and I think it was only when you went back to it and you sort of mentioned how good it looked graphically, I then went and watched a YouTube video of I think it was just a general bit of gameplay or something, and I was really impressed with the graphics of it, and yeah, I mean, even if you straight up ported that onto the PS5, it would hold up with the brand new releases like easy. But yeah, I mean, I haven't got too much to say about it, so I'm happy to pop it in B, and then we can move on.
Well, yeah, but just quickly, I think it really is, it's decent fun to play. But from what I was saying there, it's kind of sparked something in my head where it almost sounds like, in my opinion, it's a bit of a hidden gem, and it gets the negative reviews when it doesn't deserve them, which sort of moulds it into that category that we might be developing for the new Love Letters series that are coming onto the channel recently. So we did the first one with Sleeping Dogs, and I know Dan's got one in the pipeline now. If there's any sort of clamour for it whatsoever, if anyone wants to let me know in the comments down below, more than happy to discuss that in further detail and do a Love Letters video for it, and see if I can sell it for you and see if it's something that you could pick up, because it's only about £5 in the UK on the PlayStation Store at the minute, so it's really pocket change for something you can spend a weekend on it, you can get it done. And I can let you know in a love letter video exactly why you should do that. So if there is any appetite for that, please let me know, and I'll get something in the works. But no, sorry, Dan, over to you.
That's fine. So I am going to pick something that's a little more on topic, I guess, because it was only fairly recent. Well, I think at the time of recording this, it's still free on Days of Play. So it's Horizon Zero Dawn. Now, when I first picked this game up, it's for a start, as soon as the game got released, it was something that was on my radar, and I thought, this looks really, really good. I never went out and bought it. Like, I never went out and thought, oh no, I need to get it. But it was always something that was on my wish list. And as soon as it came free on the Days of Play, I thought, right, let's pick it up, because I finally get a chance to have a look at it. And it's got the I think it's the second one, the Horizon Forbidden West, that's coming out soon. So I thought, well, it's a good time to look into it. And in fact, it was, I want to say, last weekend that I picked it up and started playing it properly. Probably sunk about, I don't know, maybe 20 hours into the game. And I'll be honest, I really, really like it. I was not expecting it to be the game that it is. So for me, it has one of the mechanics in games that generally I don't like is that feeling of terror at all times, and it's only mild. I will explain that. So it's I don't like in big open worlds where you have very specific quests to go into a pocket on a map where there are a lot of enemies, and especially enemies that are bigger than you and are quite difficult to take down. Saying that, the game mechanics themselves are very similar to that of Far Cry, from what I've played of the Far Cry games, which I also rate really, really highly, again, off the back of your introduction there, Snow. So this game, for me, feels like it's in the same vein as Far Cry. And graphically, it's really good. The story so far is absolutely incredible. I wouldn't say it's the best story ever out there, but I do think it's really good. I think the idea behind the game is also really good, and so far, I don't really want to put it down. It's a really good game.
Yeah, I would echo that. It's another one from sort of the Ollie school of games. It's quite a hefty RPG, and it's something that if a game like that comes out, then you know for a fact that I've got it by the first day it comes out. It's brilliant. I think it's groundbreaking, and it's a barrier breaker just because you've got that female protagonist in Aloy, and I think that they really did that justice, and it didn't seem to be like something that was maybe shoehorned in or anything like that. I think they were really clever with how they did it, and I think it's great that you can have a female protagonist that doesn't. It's not like, oh look, yeah, they've put that in because she's a girl, you know, and it made sense, and it was completely as it should be. There hasn't been anything, I don't think, like that since Lara Croft with the Tomb Raider games. I think the gameplay is really good. I know you said that it reminded you a bit of Far Cry. I've got a slightly weirder sort of comparison to make. I think that when you got to, especially the bigger mechs and stuff, the weak spots on it I thought were quite like Resident Evil bosses, which is kind of a weird comparison to make. But I think they did that really well because of some of them with the sheer size. I know you said you're 20 hours in, but once you get a bit further in, there's some that literally block out the sun. There's some huge big bosses that you've got to fight, and they've got weak spots, and it's really like one of the latter stages of a Resident Evil game where you come in against the big zombies or whatever. But I like the overriding stuff that you can do. I just kind of liked riding around on one of them when I can just go across fields on some like giant horse made out of metal. It's just like a really weird but great thing to do. And they released it at a time where the only thing that seemed to be releasing in the industry were like sequels, remakes and remasters. And they said that Guerrilla were releasing a unique IP. And everyone was saying, what, an IP that's not been done before? They're not going to get anywhere in that because everyone just invests in nostalgia or invests in things that they know because they've played the previous game and now they want to play the next bit of the story or whatever. So it came at a time where it was quite brave of them to do it in a time where it's not necessarily something that's going to get the eyes on that it needs, but it was really, really good, and I think it surpassed all expectations. And Forbidden West, as you've alluded to there, Forbidden West looks like it's going to be unreal on the new on the PS5, and yeah, I don't think it deserves to go anywhere other than S.
Yeah, no, I'd be happy with that. And one thing that I actually found myself doing a lot. So whilst I was, this is going to sound really weird, but whilst I was playing this game, so with my sort of setup and everything. My fiance was playing The Sims next to me on the laptop, and
very similar games.
No, completely different. But it was one of those games where, although I sort of had my headset on so I could hear what was going on in the game. Hold
on. So you've compared it to Far Cry and I've compared it to Resident Evil. Are you going to try and... Is it one-upsmanship? But don't tell me you're about to try and compare this to The Sims.
No, I'm not.
Thank God. Please carry on.
That's just a little bit of backstory for what I'm about to say. So...
Killed the boss, walked over the body, picked up some simoleons and then got a job in the newspaper.
No, so it was one of those things where it's it's involved, but you can also take a bit of time out of it. So the story is like, you need to pay attention to the story. It's ever expanding, and there's a lot to take in, and you can miss certain things if you aren't looking for them and you're not paying attention to it. However, there are periods of time where, like, between finding one area that you need to be in and going and doing a quest, traversing the environment, I stopped so many times. So I mean, just so I could have a conversation with my fiance, just seeing what she's doing, or talking about what we're going to do for food at the weekend or whatever it was. And the amount of times I just catch myself staring at the screen, thinking, "Wow, this game is beautiful." I mean, just looking up at like the mountain ranges, and you can see obviously like the fog, which is obviously one of those tricks that the game developers put into games to make it seem like the map is so much bigger, and actually it's a way of saving resources, so they don't have to try and load all of the trees or whatever. But it just looks good from every angle. Like, whether you're in a cutscene or you're in the middle of fighting a mech or whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Like, it's just a really, really beautiful game, and the detail that's I mean, one of the things we've said about the new generation is the amount of detail that they can go into with all the ray tracing and stuff. And you think, this is last generation, and you can still see individual strands of hair as you're running around as the character. Like, if you just get close enough, or you move the camera so it gets really close to her, it's just incredible looking. And I was like, wow, actually, the only time I've ever really stopped and gone, this game looks incredible and I like looking at the views, was Red Dead Redemption 2. And I just think both of them are absolutely impeccable visually. And that's why that's my last little bit that I wanted to add on there.
Yeah, it's great. And I think when we get a release date for Forbidden West, I'm going to go back to it and make sure maybe in like 2 weeks or 3 weeks before Forbidden West comes out, I'm going to go back through it again so I'm fresh and ready to go. And I don't tend to be one that, I mean, the top 5, top 10 that I talk about sometimes, they're ones that I'll go back to and play more than once. I don't tend to be with other games one that will go back and play it. So it's got into that sort of category for me, so it's really good. For my go now, I'm going to pick 2 if that's okay, but I'm going to talk about one more in depth than the other, but they're both from the same series, and one of them's really sort of a spin-off / DLC from the main game anyway. So I'm going to go for Uncharted 4 and just tie it in with Uncharted Lost Legacy. Yep. As I said during this video, I am very much a graphics guy. And from what you've just said about Horizon, it sounds like you might be too. But I really like good visuals in a game. I'm like one of these people that will go and stand in water just to go and look at how well they've done the water. That's a very big thing for me. I think how well an engine can make water look can literally make a game an S rank or a C rank in my mind. I love how water goes. But Uncharted 4, again, one of those games that is one of the greatest looking games that I've played. Uncharted is another huge Naughty Dog franchise, and it's rightfully in the place that it's in. Another one that's getting a live action sort of spin-off or whatever going onto it because they're making a film about it. And I'm pretty sure that's almost been wrapped up and is in proper production now anyway. But again, it shows that there's a massive audience for something because they've been able to do something like that and release it as a feature film. But the graphics alone would make Uncharted 4 really highly ranked for me. The gameplay builds upon the previous 3 games, and the previous 3 games are great. The first game shows its age a bit now, but first is good, the second's better, the third's better, and the fourth's even better. So that's how you want a series to go, really. You want it to get better and better with each entry. Lost Legacy, I suppose, could have really been a DLC, but it's quite weighty in terms of what it's got in it and what it adds to it. It's like a further arm to the story and the gameplay of 4. So I think it is fair that they released it as standalone, because I think it is probably a bit too much for a DLC. It's you get a good 6 hours out of that one. But I do think that when it was released, if I remember rightly, they priced it correctly. It wasn't like a full release, so I think that's fair enough. So I think you can sort of band those together. It's another one with Lost Legacy where you've got a female lead, which, if done correctly, is great. And it was done correctly there, especially from the Uncharted games, which are obviously the male lead with Nathan Drake, who has become quite the game character since the first game came out. One of the most recognisable faces in gaming, and one of the most recognisable faces for Sony as well. So I think that Uncharted 4 deserves either an A or an S. We'll get your take on that one in a moment. And then wherever we put Uncharted 4, I think that Lost Legacy deserves to go one below that, just because it's almost like Uncharted 4 Lite. So it still holds up with the same gameplay and visuals, but obviously it's not as good as Uncharted 4 because that's the mainline entry and that's got the more to it. So that's where I think that they should go sort of in comparison to each other. But what do you think with the SRA for Uncharted 4 and then, in effect, Lost Legacy being A or B, I guess?
I mean, I agree with most of what you said there, and I would actually say that, especially where you're talking about, the fact that, 1 was good, but 2 was better, and then 3 is better than that, and 4 is better. It definitely is one of those games that's constantly evolving, and it's got better at each iteration. If we were talking about some of the earlier iterations, then, like, for example, the first or second, they were quite buggy in certain parts, and that would have brought it down for me. But yeah, as you're saying, like the graphics, the gameplay, the movement controls, like, they've worked on so much with Uncharted 4 that, yeah, I'm happy to put it in S, and then I would follow that with where are we? Lost Legacy, going in A.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And if you want to hear more of my thoughts in depth, particularly about Uncharted 4, there seem to be a lot of shilling in this video, but this might be the last one. Apologies in advance. But there's an older video on the channel that I did. I think it might be my first list that I did. It was at the start of the first lockdown when the pandemic hit us. I gave you top 10 games / series to play in lockdown / quarantine, because that was a word that was being used a lot at the start of the pandemic. And I go into a lot more detail there discussing it. So if you do want to see any of my thoughts on the game in a finer detail, then once you've done with this video, be sure to go and check that out on the channel. Dan, I think it sits with you now, mate.
So I am going to bundle 2 games together as well. Not just in the interest of time, but also in the interest of not wasting the viewers' time as well. So Knack and Knack 2. Now, I could be shot for this, and I kind of hope I am, because I've not played either of these 2 games. It's not because I don't know anything about them. I do know very sort of on the surface information about them. However, nothing about the games ever made me want to buy them or play them. I mean, if they're offered for free, they'd be the sort of games where I come across them and go, oh yeah, okay, well, I'll add that to my library, but it won't be one that I start downloading straight away. Not like Horizon Zero Dawn. So I think whether that's a massive failure on the marketing side of it, which it could very well be, or whether they just didn't do a good enough job of sort of putting the right elements in a game for me. But I certainly haven't played either of them, and I would therefore leave them in the D ranking. What about you?
Yeah, I'd agree. I would second what you were saying, where if anyone does disagree, leave it in the comments, because a lot of times on these tier list videos, there's ones where you or I may say what you've just said, and then the other person will say, no, I massively disagree, and we have an argument about it. But that isn't going to be the case for this one, because I agree with everything that you've said. When I don't know if 2 has, but 1 definitely has been offered as a PS Plus exclusive free game. I didn't know English then, I just couldn't be asked to do words. But yeah, when it's been offered on PS Plus, I've added it to my library and then not looked at it again. I've never downloaded it. Have played it, and it's a weird way of playing it, but it was one of the launch games for the PS4, and when the PS4s were in shops, where you can have a sample on it, that was the game that I played. It doesn't resonate with me at all. I don't think I'm its target audience. It doesn't have any pull with me whatsoever. It's not something that I want to go and play. So I can rate it because I've played it. It might be a bit unfair because I've not played enough of it, but from what I've played, I'm not going to be playing enough of it, because I don't think I'm going to go back to it. Unless, as we've said, there's a comment down below that tells us for reasons X, Y, and Z that we really need to, it's going to remain in D, I think. Yep.
Fine by me.
So they don't follow on. They're not necessarily prequel, sequel, whatever. And I don't know if I'm going to pick it now. I might do. But just what your opinion is, do you think if we bunch together another 2 here, we could bunch together Shadow of the Colossus and The Last Guardian, or do you think they're too different and we should do them separately? What's your thought?
No, I'd be happy to talk about them both, because they are similar games. They're not the same by any means, but they are kind of similar. Yeah,
they're 2 very different in terms of where the story goes, how the gameplay is, and what you need to do. But they're by the same guys, and they're kind of spiritual successors, I guess. I'll talk about Shadow of the Colossus, because Shadow of the Colossus is fantastic. It's a real basic premise, and it's one of these things where simplicity is just the best thing, and if done correctly, it's done amazingly. You're taking on... Is it 10? I can't remember. It's been so long. But you're basically, their game is a giant boss fight, and you take on the Colossi, and I believe there's 10 of them. But they all have sort of different mechanics and different ways that you take them down, as you would have for games that have multiple boss fights in them. There's different ways of doing things, and for such a basic premise and a standard way of setting things out, the emotion and everything that it's still elicited from the player, because when you find out that actually, spoiler alert, you're the bad guy, and you're the person that's doing the wrong to all the world, and that these creatures aren't harmful to you in any way unless provoked, and all you're doing is provoking them, and then they attack you to defend themselves, it really it gives a real emotive response, and the writers and the way that they've done that and woven it into the story and the gameplay, I think was really, really well done. It's actually a PS2 game as well that was then remastered and became obviously a PS4 exclusive from there. And the remake was really well done. It looks beautiful on the newer systems at that time. And I think it deserves an S ranking, in my opinion, which would then move me on to The Last Guardian, which is another more simplistic game. It's that sort of game of that ilk, because like Eco and that sort of thing that they made as well, which, by the way, is also brilliant, but obviously isn't on PlayStation 4, so isn't part of this list. Last Guardian really let that down for me a little bit. I liked the premise and the way that they tried to do it, but you had a giant companion called Trico, who's kind of like a sort of flying dog, hyena sort of thing. But I just don't think the AI was good enough, and it didn't react to the player and the player's movements and where the player wanted it to go. And sometimes it could even impede you and stop you from continuing because it was just in the wrong area, and it was just an obstacle in your path where it should have been working with you. Other than that, the game's really good, and the way that it was designed is good, and it looks great, as does Shadow of the Colossus. But if you compare them, that's probably unfair, because Shadow of the Colossus is very, very good. So Last Guardian looks worse because of that. But I just can't get past the shoddy AI in The Last Guardian. So with Shadow of the Colossus being S, Last Guardian for me would be either B or C. And I know there is a lot of people that like it, and I want to get your take again to tell me if B or C, because I'd go for either of them, but we see what you think. But first off, do you agree with what I've said about Shadow of the Colossus? And then if you go on to Last Guardian, let us know what you think about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, the Shadow of the Colossus was really, really good. As you said, it was a very simple game, but brilliantly executed, and no arguments there at all. The Last Guardian is a game where I haven't played it myself, but it was one of those where I've watched a couple of hours worth of a playthrough, and I don't have the same negative connotations that you have about it, because I wasn't the guy playing it. I just kind of found it a little bit funny as I was watching the playthrough. And yeah, graphically, again, it's brilliant. I think the game itself stands alone very, very well, but you do have to kind of look at them together because they are a game of similar veins. Yeah,
they're
definitely.
linked.
And I kind of know what you're saying in terms of, you know, the AI not being quite so good, but I don't know if that's a good enough reason to knock it down to a C rating when it was a very good game. So I would even potentially be thinking somewhere between A and B. If you're not thinking A, then I think we to compromise, we definitely go B.
Yeah, I'm happy for it to go for B. It's just, for me, what they tried to do is have a relationship that was built up with the actual player with Trico, and I just don't think it worked, because me as the player, I did build a relationship with him, and that relationship was of hatred because I could not stand the thing by the end of the game because it did my head in. And there's scenes and things in there where it's like they're like tear jerkers and things, and it didn't really click with me, and it didn't have that response in me because
you're heartless.
The thing was a bloody nightmare. And it just did not do what I wanted it to do. And now I'm thinking about it, I've started to get a bit, and I can feel it building up in me again, so we need to move on quickly, otherwise this is going to become an expletive-filled, non-PG tier list, and we cannot be having that.
Right, on to the next one then. And I'm going to pick Until Dawn. Now, we... Just as a little behind the scenes, there was a different list that we were looking at putting together. I think it was maybe a week or two ago. It basically, everything that could have gone wrong went wrong with it. So we just decided to scrap it. Until Dawn was on that list, and we spoke quite in depth about it, I guess. So I'll keep this kind of succinct, I think is the word. So we both played this game completely different times, but we both like those branching narrative kind of games. Now, obviously, this one has horror elements in it, or not necessarily horror, but more thriller, because they're more kind of like it tries to keep the suspense the whole way through, and then the jump scares, which, as I've said before, are cheap tactics, and I hate them. So this for me, I thought graphically was fine. There was I could see what I was doing, and it didn't feel like it was out of place. It felt very much in the right kind of game engine for what you needed to do. The problem for me is that I didn't really feel like the decisions that you made were necessarily having much of an impact. I mean, they were, but they weren't having much of an impact. I didn't feel like I could. If I was to play this game through more than once, I feel like I would end up on a very similar ending, if not exactly the same, just because the decisions didn't feel like they were too different, basically. And for that, I would put it as a B.
Yeah, love narrative games, as you've said. I think with hindsight being 2020, nowadays there's alternatives to Until Dawn. So Until Dawn, made by Supermassive, they then went on to make the Dark Pictures Anthology, we'll say instead, because that's the correct way of saying it. And this, I promise, will definitely be the last plug. If you do go onto the channel, you'll see that we've played in full the Little Hope game. We live streamed that as a Halloween special last year. I think Man of Medan and Little Hope, which are the two currently released games in the Dark Pictures Anthology franchise at the minute, are better than Until Dawn. So I think it was a good building block to start building the rest of it up. I think it was solid. It was almost like it was trying to go on more of like an American teen slasher sort of thing rather than out and out horror. There wasn't too many things in there that were massively jump scary. I think the suspense and jump scare sort of thing might be more what happened with Little Hope, as you'd see when Dan's underwear were painted a different colour in the live stream series. But for me, as I said, solid. It's not the best narrative-driven game out there. It's not the best narrative-driven horror game out there, but it serves a purpose, and I think it's a really good party game. If you've got a load of people over and you're having a couple of drinks, it's good to play it together, and everyone picks a character and try and keep that one alive. That can be quite fun. But yeah, I think it deserves to go middle of the road, but it's a good segue to move on to the next one, I believe, because it's my turn to pick, and I'm going to pick another very heavily narrative-driven game, but not a horror one at all. And it's another game by David Cage, who made the Heavy Rain game and Beyond Two Souls, and back in the day Fahrenheit, which in the US is called Indigo Prophecy. There's a decent amount of knowledge there because I love those games. I'm a big fan of narrative-driven games, choice and consequence. Always been a big fan of that. Huge fan of the Telltale games. So Detroit Become Human is my next pick. Pre-ordered it for the reasons I've listed, and I really enjoyed it. I thought that there were things that could have been done better. I don't think it was perfect by any stretch. There's some of the Telltale games that I prefer to it, but out of David Cage's games, I think it's the second best. I really, really like Heavy Rain. I think that is better than Detroit, and I'd like to see a new one from him that maybe can go up against Heavy Rain. But I think Detroit was a worthy competitor in the ring against Heavy Rain when that came out. It's a brand new thing that we've not really seen that much in gaming, at least before. There's been a few films and things about it, but androids or like a sort of a robot uprising isn't massively something we've seen too much in gaming. So it was a fresh take on something new. The story was good. Was it amazing? No, but it did keep you hooked into it. You want to know what's going to happen at the end, and you want to know what choices you've made and what the consequences are to those choices that you've made and how that's going to impact the ending. I did hear rumours of there's triple figures of the amount of endings that the game has. Not sure if that really boiled down to being that amount once the game was released, but I know there is quite a lot of them, and it would take someone a very long time to get all endings. But yeah, I think it's another one that's solid, I think. It's not going to pave the way for everyone wants narrative-driven games. It's not going to be a pioneer or anything like that. But I do think it was good when it came out, and it's something that you can go back to as well. And the twists and turns that the narrative has were not. There wasn't too many of them, and when they did come, they were hard hitting and they were done correctly. David Cage is a magnificent storyteller anyway, so that is to be expected. So for me, I would be looking for that to go in sort of the bottom half when we get to it of the A section. I don't know about
I'd
you,
agree.
Dan.
Actually, I was thinking about A as soon as I saw this game. It's one of the games that I've played off of the back of your recommendation, and as soon as I got through the first sort of section of the story, where I believe the first one is that the android ends up on the rooftop with the little girl, and you have to kind of save the little girl.
Yeah.
That hooked me straight from the get-go. Like you say, it's not the best story in the world. It's not the best graphically. It's not even the best narrative-driven game that I think we've ever played. That would be Telling Lies.
Would it really?
It wouldn't. Probably Erica be the best, which is also on the channel. I did like Telling Lies, but that's mostly because we just made a load of our own in-jokes, especially about
we made our own
song
story
that was going off that we usually sent back and forth. But I do think it's the best branching narrative game on this list. And whilst I would say, there are loads and loads of really good things about it, they're just there isn't enough about this game that makes me want to play it multiple times. I understand, the idea is that when you've got these branching narratives, it's one of those cases where you think, okay, brilliant, I got through it that time, and this is the result I got. Let me go through it again, make some different decisions, and see if I can get something different. However, as soon as I got through the story, it was like, yeah, that was good. Don't really fancy playing that again though, and it just felt more of a. I don't know. I don't know if that's me because I'm not necessarily one for these kinds of games, but it just kind of felt like it was anticlimactic. Like, I got to the end of the game, it was like, right, cool. What am I playing next? And for that reason, I think that's why it misses out on S, and I would see it in A.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with what you've said, but I think maybe the reason behind it might be that you didn't want to play it. Well, certainly for me, but you didn't want to play it again because you picked choice A or B. You got to the ending because you picked A, and that's what happened because I picked A. Therefore, that means if I'd have picked B, that must happen. It's not one of them ones where, I wonder what happens if I were to pick B. Do you know what I mean? I think it's more like that.
I would agree with that.
You sort of know what the opposite side of the coin is going to be, so you don't need to play it because you can just work it out, rather than there's going to be that much of a massive shuffle in things because of the one choice that you've made. The consequences are going to be so different that you can't even fathom what it's going to be. I think that's the thing that makes you potentially not want to pick it up again.
I think you're probably right there. So that takes us on to the next one, right?
Yeah.
So I'm probably going to say something quite controversial with this one then.
Pitchforks at the ready.
For example, one of our, shall we call him an honorary member of XPL? We were just chatting to you before we started this recording. And we sort of went through this quick blast of what we thought was good and whatnot of this list, and he said that this game was incredible, or words to that effect. Anyway,
I feel like we might have some comments on this because I know where you're going to go with it, and I think the same as you.
Now,
I think
Gran Turismo is one of those franchises I think where if you fell in love with it early on, you are still in love with it. I think that this is a great version of Gran Turismo. If you are a PlayStation,
aficionado,
and you're only ever on PlayStation, and you've never come across things like Forza, for example, then I think you're going to have a problem with what I'm saying about this game, because you will say, this is it's the most realistic, it's the best kind of racing game you're going to find on the console, etc., etc. Whereas I just can't say any of those good things about it. I think Gran Turismo as a series is okay, but I think it it tries to do too much. It tries to be too involved, and I would actually say that this is worse than Driveclub, because Driveclub, when it came out, as you said, it's full of a few bugs, and they worked hard on it, and that's why I think it sort of deserves to be where it is now. Gran Turismo, for me, the only thing it has going for it is its looks. But if you compare those looks to Forza, there's no comparison. So for that reason, and the fact that they didn't bring anything new to the table, I kind of want to put this at C.
Yeah, I mean, it's a game that's been known for its visuals ever since its inception, but the visuals looked amazing on PS2, and that's what they've built on. They've built on what was already good. As you've said, there's nothing new. They've not added anything to it. But nowadays, because of how advanced we are and how far we've come since those days, everything's catching up to it in terms of the visuals, and it's surpassing it in terms of their gameplay, because there's so much more to it. All the newer Gran Turismo game had was the visuals. It wasn't deep at all. There wasn't too much you could do on it. But the one thing that puts it down for me, and it might be a personal gripe, I don't know, there might be some people that think the same, and if you do, comment below once again, was the marketing for the virtual reality stuff that it said that it did, and all the VR. It was almost like it was, at the top of the PS4 games when they say like VR compatible or only works with VR and things like that. The way they did it and the way they marketed this game and the way I think it was shown on packaging until I believe it was taken off was that this is a VR game. So when I bought PSVR and I wanted to play a racer, I had to decide between Driveclub and between Gran Turismo in my mind, because they were both fully fleshed out VR racers, and I wanted to do a racer. And as you mentioned when we were on Driveclub, the VR thing did seem a little bit buggy when it had that sort of demo, and that's what I tried. So I thought, right, I'll pick up Gran Turismo then, because that's a well-known franchise. It's one of Sony's biggest hitters in terms of the racing part of genre. And the only thing that you could do on VR was training laps. You couldn't do any race whatsoever in VR. So I spent, I think, about £50 on the game at release to solely play the whole game VR. Granted, I might not have done my full research or whatever, but it was marketed as if it was a VR game. So I don't think that should be a valid point. And you may tell me I'm a moron in the comments, but go ahead. I'll even like it if you like. I didn't get the VR experience that I was promised. So for me, that is a complete misrepresentation, and that's why it completely goes down in my eyes. So I'm more than happy for it to be at the highest of C, because I just don't think it matched up to what it said it could do on the tin. I also think that fans of Gran Turismo have dropped off because of that, because I don't think there was enough to it. There wasn't enough in the game, and it didn't offer what other racers that were competitors and are now, I believe, have overtaken it also offer. So yeah, I'm happy for that to go to C. I'm going to go for, I believe, there's a 2 on there that could be an S, but there's one definite. My potential last S of the video, and that would be for Persona 5, if we could. I am not an anime, manga, whatever. I am not that guy at all. The only times really where I've got into the sort of heavily Japanese-based things would be when I picked up Yakuza, which oh my god, I'm about to shill something again. Jeez.
You've already promised.
If you've been on the channel for a little while, if you've been on the channel for a little while, you'll know that I'm a huge Yakuza fan, and there may or may not be some Yakuza videos on the channel already. Who knows? There could be. You never know. There is. Go and watch them. So this was my next foray into sort of the Japanese market, and I didn't think I'd enjoy it at all. I think because there was so many positive reviews, and it got like the highest scores that I'd even seen at that time. Everything was saying like 10 out of 10. I thought I need to give this a go just because of the reception that it's received, and I didn't look back as soon as I did it. I put in over 100 hours on Persona 5. You have to finish it anyway. It's a huge game, and they've packed so much into it, and it's an anime style game, so as I said earlier, I'm a visuals guy. That doesn't really come into it on this. It's the exquisite story and the exceptional way that it's told. It's the character development and the feelings and thoughts that you get for the characters throughout the story. The way it's presented and the art style that the anime takes on is really well done. And there's so much that you can do in it. anything that you can think of that relates to a game of that sort of ilk, you can do in the game. I'd recommend it to anyone. I'd recommend it to fans of that sort of genre and that sort of niche, but I'd also, on the flip side, recommend it to people that aren't necessarily fans of that area of gaming, because I definitely wasn't a fan of that area before playing it, but I definitely am now, and anything new in the Persona franchise is something that I now keep my eye out for, and I think that really goes to show that this game can hit home to any sort of gamer whatsoever, so it would be a real recommendation of mine, and probably something that I'll be doing some sort of video on in the future, maybe something on love letters. And it's obviously huge in Japan, but Persona 5 was the Persona game that I believe really kicked it up for the Western audiences. I know Persona 4 is quite good as well. But the sales, and with the Royal Edition recently coming out for Persona 5, it's really pushed on in the West, and it really deserves to have worldwide acclaim that it now seems to be getting. And those 10 out of 10 reviews I don't think can be ignored. So I think S is 100% the best place for that game to be going.
So for me, this is one of the games where I haven't played it, but the big thing is probably, again, how much you've spoken about it. Again, the reviews are like 9 or 10 out of 10s everywhere you look. The only thing that I find a bit, it's a bit of a put off, is it seems very, very confusing. So from somebody from the outside, it comes across, it looks kind of like a, I think it was on the PlayStation Store, like the trailer for it. It seems like a absolute mental cacophony of sort of a hack and slash game with magic powers, and because it's all in that anime style, it's very bright, it's very colourful, it's very fast. It looks like there's too much going on all at once. And then if you look at the DLC that comes along with it as well, I have no idea where I would start with this. And knowing, I think when you are playing through it, you said like it was difficult to save the game. Was it? It was like if you got to a certain point you hadn't saved it, or if you died or something like that, you had to start like from scratch for that level or something like that.
Yeah, I remember the first playthrough that I had. I think assumed it was going to be an autosave thing, but you save it at certain points, so I didn't know that before going in. Although, I will just touch on what you said there. I don't know if it's down to the marketing or the way that the Japanese guys do things, I don't know, but what you've described there isn't what the game is. So it's not like a hack and slash or anything like that. It's actually something that I think would be right up your street. It's like a turn-based combat system that builds sort of in the same sort of way as the Pokemon games are like. It's more like that. You've got like your HP and moves that your persona can do, which then, take off stuff from certain bars and everything like that you've got built up. It's like really like how Pokemon is, and you have to catch new personas and everything like that. So it takes from games that you really like. So I think it is something that you'd like. It's not fast-paced really at all. It is a bit of a slow burner. But I will say, for what you said about sort of the confusing story, not knowing what's going on, you do have to suspend belief a bit at the start, and then you'll pick it up as it goes on. There are things that don't really make sense to a Western audience, I guess. It's heavily Japanese. You can tell it's Japanese just from the story. I don't mean that offensively in any type. You know what I mean. It's just a bit wacky, let's say. But yeah, it doesn't make sense at the start, but it doesn't take too long for you to understand as it goes on. An hour or two into it, and you kind of know where things are going, because it's not really... That sort of story isn't really something that I've had much experience in the past, but I still managed to pick it up within those 1 to 2 hours. So I wouldn't let that put you off. But yeah, I see why you think it is like that, but it's not that sort of game at all. It's just how they seem to present it, which is strange. They kind of present it as if it's like an anime Devil May Cry, and it's nothing like that at all. It's like it's a turn-based Pokemon of thing. That's what kind of thing it is. Again,
I could be absolutely wrong, and obviously I've not played this game. You have. And again, the comment section will hopefully tell me to go and play this game. And if it comes to one of those kind of things, I might even do a playthrough on the channel. So definitely let us know if that's something that I should give it a go. If you want to go and check out some of the other videos, I haven't promised anything about plugging. and I think this also might be my only second plug. But yeah, I've got a lot of Pokemon stuff on the channel anyway, so any of you who's kind of gone through previous videos will probably know that about me. So yeah, I don't want to detract from it being an S. It's just, as I say, maybe most of these games where either we haven't played or we haven't seemed that interested. Maybe it is all down to marketing. How much of a role does marketing play? Because I mean, there's games like, for example, the next one that I will pick is God of War. Games like that, they were heavily marketed, and it's one of those things where even if I wasn't a gamer, I would have seen an advert, be it on the side of a bus, in a cinema, in the middle of watching soaps on TV, about this game. So maybe it is to do with marketing, I don't know, but I guess that's why marketing people get paid, and that's why they've got a job.
Yeah, some of them do it right, some of them do it wrong, and I think we've seen with these games that can be done on both sides of the spectrum and can really impact what
Definitely.
we think about games, just how the marketing goes.
So if you're happy, I will move on to God of War. God of War is a franchise I have never been bothered about, which is weird because I am into all that kind of mythology and superhero-y kind of thing. I know it's not superheroes, it's gods. But effectively, what are superheroes if not gods?
I suppose you can branch it all under fantasy, so I suppose they are linked.
It's been a series that I've never really been interested in. And I just kind of thought, well, yeah, it's all to do with mythology, but it's not really up my street. Now, at the time when this game came out, I never played it, but thankfully it's in the PlayStation... what is it? The PlayStation exclusives list that Sony have given out if you got a PS5. Yes.
Yeah, PS Collection, which also we should quickly say, it's just to give Persona 5 a couple of seconds again. If you did want to play it and did want to do a series on the channel, or to anyone watching, if you wanted to experience it because you're sort of intrigued as to how we've spoken about it, that's also on the PS Collection list, and I'd give that a recommendation. Apologies.
So since then I did. Because obviously when the PlayStation 5 first came out, there wasn't a hell of a lot to choose from. I think if you didn't have either Spider-Man or Valhalla, everything else was basically the PS exclusives. So I picked it up, played about 3 or 4 hours of it, and then put it back down. Never went back to it, and I've since deleted it from the console. It's not because I think the story's bad. It's not because I think the graphics are bad, because I do think the story's good. The graphics are insane. I like the combat. However, for me, the controls are way too clunky for something that is trying to be halfway between an RPG and a hack and slash kind of game. And I know that not all of the series are like that, but this one is. And it feels very much a case of go to place by attacking everything in the way, do a slight puzzle, and then you get your upgrade or something like that. And it just didn't feel very good with movement, especially like coming off some of the later games that were on the PS4's list. So, for example, at the time I would have been playing Final Fantasy VII, which is very, very clever in the way that it allows you to move around, and graphics were, absolutely insane. And the story was just better. So, coming off of that to a game like God of War, it just felt like, wow, there's one company who does this kind of thing really good, and another company that just kind of go, that will do. And I think God of War just kind of fits in that'll do section. So I would again be looking to put this in B.
Okay. It's a very weird one because I can see that people will be saying that it's like the best game of the generation and would be putting it in S. And I can see that. I can understand it. However, it's more like what you've been saying. It's just one of those games that, and one of those series that has never really clicked with me for whatever reason. I've played it and it was good, but it's not one of those things that I've never finished it, and it's not a thing that I've gone and want to play the other ones or properly get into it. I might give it another go soon because they've got, I think it's Ragnarok is the new one that's coming out soon. But I've seen the whole game be played by someone else. I watched a YouTube series from a content creator on YouTube with it. And it's very, very good. And I know we're going to get quite a lot of flack for not putting it in S, but I don't think, just because this is our two personal opinion, I don't think it deserves to go in S just because it's two people that are talking about it and they haven't necessarily gone on to enjoy it as much as other people have. So I don't think it's right for us to put it higher because other people like it, so we have to sort of sheep and follow them. I would contest what you've said, though. I do think it is very good, and I do think it is one of the heavy hitters on PlayStation 4, and I think it deserves to be spoken about in the way that it is spoken about. Just because we haven't necessarily picked it up doesn't mean that it's no good. I would be saying that it needs to go in A, which I still think is, again, lower than other people would have said, because I do think it's really good. It's just not a game that's particularly made for me or for you either. But the way they've done it and the way that it's been crafted, I think, has been done really well. So I would argue that an A ranking is right for God of War.
And I mean, seeing as we've already got some potentially contentious ordering going on, I can be persuaded to move that up to A.
That might get me some new fans. I'm not fighting for an S, though. I don't think that's fair. If both of us haven't stuck with it, then I can't see how it can get to an S. But I fully understand why some people would say it was an S. I really can see why everyone holds it in such high esteem. But it's A for us for those reasons. I don't really think that can be hugely argued, surely. We're going to get people that will, and please let us know. But I feel like you can understand where we're coming from. Right. I'm going to go for... let's slander a game. Okay. Let's pick Killzone. I picked this up for £3 and I want my £3 back. I can't stand it. And I was never really a Killzone guy, not because I didn't like it, I just for some reason didn't play them much. I had a 360 when it was 360 and PS3 times. I went PS2, 360, PS4, PS5. So I had a slight bit of time where I decided to be a freak.
There's anything wrong with the Xbox
and although we're cross-platform
community. Exactly.
We're cross-platform gaming. I was going to say that, but then you cut me off, so now I sound like I'm just a complete moron. But yeah, whatever I am. Killzone, when I was on the 360 side of things, looked like it was like one of the PS3 selling points, and I believe it was one of their best shooters. I've not played the older ones myself, but from what I've heard and what I've seen, they look like they're really good, and they deserve to be spoken about as they are. This Killzone's horrific. The gunplay is disgusting. It's like pea shooters. Half the time, it's like it's open world, and sometimes it's not, and it's linear 1 second, and then you've got a Grand Theft Auto size, Red Redemption size map to play with and not really do anything in because it's not really populated very well. There's an enemy behind you that's come out of nowhere despite the fact you thought you were in a safe place. And when you do take them down, there's no satisfaction whatsoever because it feels like you've just thrown a bit of paper at the red and they've gone down. The health and time to kill seems ludicrous. Again, it's like sometimes it's fine and sometimes it's not. It's like it was just hashed together. It was released and the numbers weren't fantastic, but as I said, I bought it for £3. That wasn't too far from release. It went down that far, and it wasn't second hand. I think I bought it from Game, sealed, new, for £3. I mean, not even like a key or on a store or anything. It was on an online store. I mean, it was a physical copy in a shop, and it was £3 brand new. And I don't even know if it had been out more than a year or two. It's just not for me. I played it once, and granted, I played it for about 20 minutes. Hated it. It was awful. So I would like to D it. Whoa, no, I'd like to put it in the D. No, I think it deserves a ranking of D.
Yeah, I mean,
thank you.
Put it this way, this is one of those games where I've not even heard of it before I saw it on this list. No. So
you've not heard of it? Buy it. No, don't. I think this might be on PS Collection as well. I might be wrong, but even if it's not, it's practically free anyway. Buy it, try it, just try it. It won't cost you any money.
If we're not talking, 30 quid, we're talking 3. Then it might be something that I give a go. But the fact that I've never heard about it is also kind of testament. And it's not like...
I think that might be really interesting, because I've just... what's the word with that? I've just pooed on it. I've just pooed on it, you've not played it. It's really accessible, because I bought it for £3. If it's not on the PS Collection, it ain't going to be any more than £3, surely. So I think you pick it up, and we see exactly what you think about it and see if you disagree with me. I think that'd be quite interesting to come together after you've spent a bit of time with it and to see if you agree with what I'm saying or not. And perhaps we could also put that on the channel too.
For now, I'm happy to leave it in D. As I say, not played it, never even heard of it. That's either, again, poor marketing or... I mean, I would even say, you know, maybe it's our fault because it's passed us by or, you know, it's something like that.
I don't know, because the Killzone games were such massive parts from like the older conventions and things when PlayStation were having their time doing the conventions. And back in the day, like the Killzone games are one of the first ones that were shown on all the teasers and everything. And this one just sort of flew by. So I feel like they had the same opinions that the gamers did about it.
It seems weird. I mean, there's a reason why we've got a YouTube channel based around gaming, is because we are avid gamers. You know, yes,
we are the gamers.
We're not always playing games, and there's other things that we do. There's other things that we enjoy.
XP.
But yeah, you know, we are avid gamers. So the fact that any game really passes us by, says a lot about the game itself or the marketing for it. So I think that just falls into that category. But I think just due to time, we should quickly move on, as there's only 2 left. I'm going to pick Bloodborne.
Yeah.
Now, I think this deserves to be in B. My arguments for that are not based on anything in particular, other than when I played this game, it felt very, very much like you either get it or you don't. And I never grew to love it. I never completed it, but I put, I think, about 3 or 4 hours into it. And I just came away feeling like, do you know what? I don't really want to play that again. And I almost resented the fact that I'd paid money for it. It's not to say it's a bad game. Again, graphically, it's quite good. It's just, I don't really like those kind of games. It's similar to like Demon Souls and stuff like that. So yeah, just for me, it wasn't for me, and I think that's the only reason why I didn't really enjoy it. I can see how people get into it, and there was that story a couple of days ago, maybe a week ago, something like that, about a 5-year-old being able to complete it, and that then all of a sudden sparked up the arguments as why you shouldn't have easy mode on games and stuff. But, you know, I do think it has a market, and I don't think it deserves to be below B, but because it didn't resonate with me, I can't put it any higher than that.
Yeah, I think for me it's another one of those God of War sort of things. I can see why it has the fan base that it does, and for those sorts of people I can see that they enjoy the game, and I can see why they enjoy the game. It is a really well made game. But it's one of those From Software sort of things, and I'm just not a From Software. I'm just not a From Software guy. I don't want to play the games where it seems like the devs are trying to come at the player sort of thing. It's not. I'm not one of those guys that will tell someone on an online game to get good. Anyone can be as good as they want. I don't care. Like it's just that those games aren't the games for me. But as I said, I can see why it's had the reception it's had and it's got the fan base that it's got, because I can see it's a really well made game. It's another one that's on the PS Collection, so maybe I'll give it a go at some point. It's not one I've played, but again, it is one that I've seen be played through to completion, so I know about it. And yeah, I just don't think I'm ever going to get with the From Software games. I don't like Dark Souls, Demon Souls, all of that. So yeah, I would have probably gone with A, but I'm happy for it to go for B. I'd have just put it up there because it's the same sort of thing as God of War, as I've said, where it's got a huge fan base, and I can see why every single one of those fans likes the game. But it's our list and it's our personal opinion, so I just don't think that it can have as high a ranking as that, because both of us have both said that we've not clicked with the game and it's not our sort of thing. So yeah, I think that's fair. Which means that we have one game remaining. And I did want to touch on this game at some point, which obviously we're going to do, it's in the list, but the state of play from PlayStation came out recently that myself and somebody else thought we were staying up late for UK time. We thought it was going to be a good 2-3 hours of new release dates for things and new announcements, and it was about half an hour and 15 minutes of that was gameplay from the new Ratchet & Clank game that was coming out. So I was already annoyed at that point until it then got its release date, which I believe is for June 21, and I went onto the store to see how much it might cost. And again, this is for the new game, not this game, but this is going to bleed over into my opinion of the older game because it really annoyed me. £70 this costs now, and I know that the first party games, that's been a rumour and has been a thing it's now going to be £70 for these first party games, like Returnal that came out recently. I'm pretty sure that's £70 as well. I can't justify paying £70 for, albeit a very good looking as well platformer. It's just a platformer. I mean, no disrespect, because platformers sort of paved the way for games at the early stages, and platformers will always have their rightful place. We're currently playing one on the channel now. You can go and see the video. But that's really annoyed me that it's £70 and state of play was about 3 seconds long. And unfortunately, I think it's going to have an impact on my decision for Ratchet & Clank. I think this is also on PS Collection, and I definitely picked it up either from there or before, but I'm pretty sure I got it for free. Really enjoyable. It's really fun. It's not one of those games where you have to sit there and focus on everything and get really invested in the storyline and what's going on. It's just a really, really well-made platforming game that you can sit back, get a drink, set yourself up for a couple of hours and just have a breeze through. It's really fun to play. It's very good looking. The sort of art style that it's got is great, and it's not really too much I can say badly about it. It's another one where I'd use the word solid. I don't think it's a new ground for the Ratchet & Clank series at all, although I do think the new one looks like it might be, although it's not worth £70. But I think it's a really solid entry for the Ratchet & Clank franchise, and with it being on PS Plus Collection, if you do own any of the next-gen consoles, I'm pretty sure you won't get it on Xbox, but if you do own the PS5, I'd recommend picking it up. It's free, so I'd recommend picking them all up. But I really would recommend giving Ratchet & Clank a go, because it's just a really good, solid platformer that you can, as I said, sit down, couple of hours, and you can have a great sort of Sunday afternoon game, is what I'd call it. I think it's really good, and there's the PS2 ones, I think, were the ones that sort of shaped how it was going to be, and they built on what was to come. I think this is just a continuation of it and more of sort of an update into what was then the current gen. I don't know what sort of experience you've had with it, Dan, but for me, it's going to be either bottom end of A or top end of B.
Yeah,
I feel like that's where it deserves to go.
For me, I've played this a little bit. I also played a couple of other games in the Ratchet and Clank sort of series. For me, this kind of, Ratchet and Clank filled the gap that Crash Bandicoot left behind. So after the big initial, I think most of the Crash Bandicoots were just on PlayStation 1. And when this one came out, it was like, oh, this is another Sony IP that's, another platformer that's just a nice, not stressful. You can kind of take it easy, and it had a couple of jokes in there. They're all family friendly. You don't have to take it too seriously. And just genuinely, as you said, solid games. They you don't need to resonate with them. You can just enjoy them, just for what they are. This one was no different. I thought it was just more of the same in a good way, and I would say that it needs to be in the A category because it does look great. The story, again, you don't really need to pay attention to it, but the movement controls are fine. I didn't find it to be clunky. There's just a lot to like about it. It's very light-hearted. There's quite a few jokes in there that it's just enjoyable, and for me, it definitely fills that gap. If you're a typical Crash Bandicoot fan, or if you've played a lot of Rayman or Mario or anything like that, any kind of platformy kind of game, this will definitely fit into your collection, and you won't be disappointed. And the fact that it is free, if you do have the PS5, just pick it up, play it, enjoy it, and wait for the next one. as you've alluded to, the next one, being £70, again, I probably won't be buying it because Ratchet and Clank is one of those things where you don't have to fully envelop yourself in the idea of it. You don't have to get too involved with it. You can just kind of pick it up and go, yeah, that'll do. It's good for kids, good for adults to play when the kids are in bed, whatever. It's just take it as it comes, and that's kind of all I can say about it. So I'd be happy for it to go in A, but I don't think it deserves to be B.
Yeah, I think it's really accessible. I think it's quite a good entry point as well to anyone that sort of wants to get gaming that isn't necessarily more of the casual gamer that isn't necessarily gaming every day of the week or every weekend or something. It's something that anyone of any age, whatever, can pick up. So I think it deserves something just for being that. And you said with the controls not being too clunky, that's really what you're looking for in a platformer. You need good controls because that's what will make or break a platformer. And I don't remember when playing it any time where I've thought, oh, for God's sake, you know what I mean? Like, oh, I did that. Why has it done that for? Oh, God, it was more... Right, yeah, that's what I needed to do. Now I've got to this section. Right, great. That's how I remember it being. So, yeah, I think it deserves an A rating. So, let's quickly go through what we've done, tier by tier, and see if they are in the order that we think they should be in by individual tier. So, starting with the D tier, we've got Gravity Rush 2, Knack 2, and Killzone, whatever
Shadowfall.
Stupid slogan they put on it. Shadowfall, yeah, great. Do we, again, there's Gravity Rush 2 that we've not played and all that, but do we think they're in the right order? Is there any that we might think are better than the others, or are they all just as poor as they are?
So I think we've already got this in the right order. Reason being, Gravity Rush, we haven't played, so I don't think it's fair to then put that at the bottom. Killzone.
Yeah. And with the reviews that I saw, I feel like it might actually be okay. So
Killzone
don't want to annoy everyone.
Definitely terrible. So we need to leave that absolutely dead last. Knack 1 and Knack 2, they're the only ones that I could potentially be considered to swap around, but not playing them, it would be difficult for me to say. But also, how many times is it where you come across a series where actually the second game doesn't quite make up or doesn't quite give you the same feeling that the first did? So for that reason alone, I
feel like that's probably what it'd be.
We're fine as we are with D.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. So with the C tier, there's only one game in there, so obviously we can't rearrange, but just to recap, C tier consists of Gran Turismo, and then moving on to the B tier, we've got Driveclub, The Order 1886, The Last Guardian, Until Dawn, and
my thoughts
Bloodborne.
On this
what are we thinking?
Last Guardian should be at the top end, so that deserves to be first, I think, because it was a very good game. Bloodborne, I would then say would be second, because again, very good game. It just didn't resonate with me, and that's why it's where it is, where I can get in the right place. God, what's going on here? There we go. I haven't played The Order, so I can't really say anything about that. Driveclub, I think middle of the road, in the middle of the road tier is fine. Until Dawn wasn't the best game in the world, so I am happy to leave it there. But as I say, I've not played The Order, so for me the only potential move that I could see is swapping The Order and Until Dawn around.
Okay, so I'll speak about that one first. So I think I've put The Order there because more of a sentimental thing for me, because in my opinion, I thought it was a lot better than people said. But there is probably the overarching amount of people that have said that it's not great, which probably counteract me. So it can go to the end of B. I'm happy to switch those two around. I enjoyed Until Dawn, so I'm happy that can get an extra sort of slot up. But The Order staying at B is fine for me anyway, so I'm happy with that. I can sort of concede it to argue against myself. The other change that I'd possibly make is to put Bloodborne above The Last Guardian. Again, with the same sort of argument with The Order. There's a huge fan base for it, and there's a much bigger fan base for Bloodborne, I believe, than The Last Guardian. And Bloodborne has won a lot more acclaim than The Last Guardian did, and more for awards. So if we're looking at the general reception, other than what us two think, I think Bloodborne deserves to be above Last Guardian. And there wasn't the sort of design faults that Last Guardian may have had either. So there wasn't any real poor AI like there was in Last Guardian. So I think it's just a much better made game.
And I think there's probably going to be, as we go up, we're going to need to compromise. So I think this is one where I'm happy to go. Yeah, that's fine.
You've just said that, and I've looked at S, and there is an argument to be had there. But before we get there, we are now on the A tier, which consists of the following: Infamous Second Son, Uncharted Lost Legacy, Detroit Become Human, God of War, and Ratchet and Clank. I'll start us off here. I believe that, again, the same argument with Bloodborne. God of War should be nearer to the top end. Ratchet and Clank, I'm happy with going up there as well. And then Detroit, middle of the road, Lost Legacy, and then Infamous would be my arrangement on there. Is there any deviation that you'd make or anything like that?
I think if I was honest with myself, I could agree and leave everything as is. However, because I'm that superhero fan, I would potentially think about moving Infamous Second Son in front of Detroit. But it's not something that I'm too... I'd get too salty about, so it's...
I'm happy to do a compromise. Because you went with my Bloodborne over Last Guardian, I'll do a slight compromise here, because that is moving by 2. I would let you move it above the Uncharted Lost Legacy.
And on to the final tier. This is where we're going to need to have some kind of conversation.
S tier. This is the money tier. This is where we could fall out. So, S tier comprises of Marvel's Spider-Man, The Last of Us Remastered, Horizon Zero Dawn, Uncharted 4,
I think it's a Thieves' Curse or something like that.
God knows, can't remember. You can probably see it, I can't.
What the tagline was.
Yeah, we'll go with it. Shadow of the Colossus and Persona 5. So you told us first about D and B. I told you first about A, so I'm going to tell you first about S, because I've tactically done it in the way that suits me. For me, starting from best to worst, I would go Last of Us Remastered. Obviously, you've already started moving it before I spoke. I would then go for Horizon Zero Dawn. I would then go for Persona 5. I would then go for Shadow of the Colossus, then Spider-Man, then Uncharted 4.
Okay, so the way I would put this, I know, because we've done this so many times, that there is no point arguing with you where The Last of Us is concerned. No.
No, you won't win if you think it's going to go... If you think Last of Us is going to go anywhere than the top of this list,
I'm not
then we may as
argue
well disband XPR.
The changes I would make here, so I would put... So I'm looking at it this way, right? So The Last of Us, even though it's the remastered version and Spider-Man was an original IP, I would say that the most fun I've had in wanting to sort of experience the world and live the life and everything, that was Spider-Man. So I would want to put Spider-Man second. Then I would say Horizon Zero Dawn. I would probably end up putting Persona last, but that's because I haven't played it. So for me, the way that I would have this is Last of Us, Spider-Man, Horizon Zero Dawn, Shadow of the Colossus, Uncharted 4, then Persona 5. But I do think we could compromise, and I would be happy to go Last of Us, Spider-Man, Horizon Zero Dawn, Persona 5, Shadow of the Colossus, Uncharted 4. Okay.
I have a different compromise. I will put forward Last of Us, Horizon Zero Dawn, Spider-Man, Shadow of the Colossus, Persona 5, Uncharted 4. Or Uncharted 4, Persona 5. I will then compromise on Persona 5 going down quite a bit to keep Horizon Zero Dawn at second, because I firmly believe Horizon Zero Dawn is the next best competitor to Last of Us on this list. However, I do agree that Spider-Man is really good.
Okay, so
I
are
think
you
third
saying
is the
this
highest
list
it
how
should
we've
be.
got it now? So The Last of Us, Horizon Zero Dawn, Spider-Man, Persona 5, Shadow of the Colossus, Uncharted 4. Are you happy with that?
I am, but because you've taken the compromise, I'm happy if you think Shadow of the Colossus or Uncharted 4 is better than Persona 5. I'm happy for you to move that around.
Putting Persona 5 at the end is the fan base, to be honest. And I do think it's something that... Well, no.
You don't want to get hunted on Twitter by the anime
I do think it's
fans.
something that I have missed. I don't think
Trust
it was any fault of anything else, just me not putting enough research into it. I think when it came up, I just kind of went, oh, what's this? Let's have a look at the first video that I saw on the PlayStation Store, and went, do you know, it doesn't look like it's for me. And ever since then, that's all I've researched. And the only other information I've had is what you've sort of given me in the past and on this video. So I'm willing to say, actually, I could be wrong here. And I think the way that list is currently, I'm quite happy with.
Okay, yeah, let's go with that then. So, that is our tier list. If you agree with us, probably not, but if you agree with us or if you disagree with us, please let us know in the comments down below. I know we have been saying that quite a lot in this video, but it's really good on this type of video to get a good debate and discussion going on down below in those comments. So let us know exactly what you think. You could completely disagree, and it's almost like the tiers have been flipped and D is S for you and all the way down. So let us know why we're wrong, and let us know exactly what you think about some of these games that perhaps we may have been too harsh with, or we've not given the time that you think that we should be giving them. But give us a like if you enjoyed, give us a dislike if you didn't. Both are fine by us. We just want to know what you think of these videos. Subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure those bell notifications are on, because if you do like these tier list videos, there will be plenty more to come in the future. And we've got a lot of other things up in the pipeline. As we said at the start of the video, we've got some big plans on some huge series that are coming your way. Dan's got a great video in mind as well. The It Takes Two series is still kicking off and still going on, and we'd love to get some of you guys going to have a look at that too. Without anything else to add, I don't think. Dan, is there anything else that you wanted to say, or is it sign off time?
The only thing that I want to say is one thing that people tend to do, and we haven't really asked them to do it, as they've just kind of done it on these videos, is they've kind of given us their experience of the game. And it's kind of nice to be able to just look at some of the comments and go, actually, like, I didn't get that from this game, but I can see how that person did. So even if you don't have anything necessarily to add, or you just want to say, actually, I do agree with you, or I don't agree with you, let us know a bit about your experience of the game as well, because one of the things that we can then go back on, if you do comment on it, it's a lot easier to have an engaged conversation with somebody who, if they say, actually, I enjoyed this game because when I played it, X, Y, and Z happened, rather than just somebody goes, no, you're wrong, this needs to be there. Because it gives us a bit more insight. We know what kind of games you like, and then it also, might sort of sway our decision as to, future games, but also what kind of things we might include on the channel if we know that, a high percentage of our viewer base actually like a particular type of game. You might have noticed that we've tried to specialise a little bit. We're doing tier lists, which seem to be doing quite well on our channel, and focusing around things like Grand Theft Auto, Yakuza, on the Sleeping Dogs video that Ollie mentioned earlier. That kind of focus is based off of some of our better, or not necessarily better, but higher viewed videos. So if we know a bit more about our sort of viewer base, we will definitely bring you more content suited to that.
Yeah, and if you did want to make a comment but you didn't quite know what to do, another thing that people have done on the previous tier list videos, literally you can list S, A, B, C, D and tell us exactly how you do it. I find that really interesting when you can see what sort of differences other people may have. If you really can't think of anything whatsoever to comment, I'll give you a word of the day like I did in the Yakuza video, when I got so many comments on there saying eye patch and thought, hold on, oh yeah, I told them to say it. If you've got this far in the video, please comment.
Muffins.
Go on, Dan, give us a word. Please comment muffins down below, and we'll know that you've got this far, and we can only thank you so much for getting this far. But from me and from Dan and from everyone at the XPL team, thank you very much for watching this video, and please stay safe in this ever-changing world, and remember to keep coming on to XPL and stay tuned for all that stuff we've got in the future. Once again, thank you and goodbye.